In this week's episode of the podcast, I break down all 15 games that the district had on tap this last week, including some thrillers, some overtime, and only one team remains unbeaten heading into district play. All that, and finally, we get to see some good basketball all the way around right here on this episode of the podcast. I'll go ahead and say it, Kaskaskia finally did it. They handled a team that they played earlier in the season as they beat Simmons College 98-68. Caleb Jenkins went 9 of 15 from the field, added 13 rebounds, 8 of them defensively, and 7 assists, scoring 20 points for the Blue Devils. Will Vassar went 7 of 14 from the field for 19 points and had 6 rebounds himself. Kobe Wilmoth went 4 of 7, 2 of 4 from 3, and had 12 points off the bench for the Blue Devils. The Blue Devils going into district play averaged 90.9 points per game, and they have 2 district games on tap this week. Let's see what Kaskaskia and Coach Hancock have on tap for the 2 district games. The Lakers opened up play for the district overall on Monday night as they had a game against the Big Blue of Milliken last Monday, as I said. John Davis went 8 of 13, including 5 of 6 from the foul line, had 4 assists, and finished with 22, leading the way for the Lakers. Diari Duncan went 6 of 11, had 12 points and 10 rebounds, and adding 5 blocks. Johnny Jones went 4 of 9 off the bench, and Mason Larkin went 4 of 4. Both players went for double digits. Bryson Bond added 7 rebounds, 4 of 7 from the field, adding 11 points, as well as the Lakers were able to handle the JV team of the Big Blue of Milliken. The Statesmen got back in the winning column at home with a 91-71 win against Oakland City JV. Caden Hinterlocker led the way for the Trail, going 5 of 10 from the field, adding 7 rebounds and 3 assists, finishing with 14 points. Shea Aluye went 5 of 6 from the field, adding 4 rebounds and 10 points. Marlon Bennett went 5 of 11 with 6 rebounds and an assist off the bench and 6 assists off the bench to spark the Statesmen with 12. And Jamaris McCray adding 10 off the bench as well. Unfortunately, the same can't be said when they fell to Jefferson in a back and forth affair, 73-72. Hinterlocker once again put the Statesmen on his back. He's done that a couple different times going into district play. He had 26 points. Took 22 shots to get there, going 10 of 22. Uluye was a close second, adding 15 points, grabbing 6 boards as well. The bench wasn't kind to the Trail, as Gabriel Davis was the leading scorer off the bench, only having 8 points. So again, bench play when it comes to district play is going to be very, very crucial for the Trail, as it is going to be for every team, but the Trail specifically. We never know what we're going to see like we saw this week. But Gabriel Collins went, again, 8 points, 3 of 7 with 4 rebounds. He had a good night. He was just the leading scorer. When your bench only has 8 points as your leading scorer, you're not really going to be able to win many games coming into the district. But they got a couple games. Let's see what they're going to be able to do. Olney Central fell for only the second time this year, but it was to a team that's had this district's number all year round in Mineral area, 75-66. Darian Lewis made his presence felt when he went 6 of 10 from the foul line, 3 of 7 from the field, and was the leading starter, netting 14 points. JT Thomas added a 4 of 6 performance from the field and 5 rebounds for 12 points. But it was Demarion Walkup having himself a night in the dungeon, going 6 of 15, 3 of 5 from 3, and 6 for 6 from the foul line, leading the Blue Knights with 21. Coach Glash might have found his core 7 as they get ready for district play. As I said, he only played 7 guys in the loss to Mineral area. The Blue Knights got back into the win column with their final game before district play opens up against Bosco Prep, winning 91-77. Walkup off the bench again led all OCC players in scoring with 22, going 8 of 13 from the 4, 3 of 5 from 3 to do it. And again, it was all off the bench. Jacoby Thompson was the second leading scorer for the Blue Knights. He was a starter who went 5 of 7, 3 of 3 from 3, had 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 1 block shot. Delshawn Sims, name we haven't called in a while, went 6 of 8 from the field, 3 of 5 from 3, leading all-stars with 16 points. So Delshawn starting to get back into the scoring column. That's good to see as, again, we get ready for district play for Coach Glash and the Blue Knights. It was a Saxon Hokeeper type of night for the SWIC Blue Storm as he had 15 points, 10 rebounds, while Bennett Briles scored 14 points as the SWIC Blue Storm fall to the Moberly Greyhounds. The Greyhounds hit 50% from the floor, 34 of 68, including 10 trays, while the Blue Storm went 20 of 55, 36% shootage from the floor, and only 4 of 15 from behind the arc. And the Blue Storm, again, fell in that game 82-64. SWIC gets a win and is over 500 as they sweep their former district foe in a home-and-home Lewis and Clark. A 30-point, 9-rebound effort from Bennett Briles is what led the Blue Storm past Lewis and Clark in Belleville. Briles was 4 of 8 from 3-point range. Nezgu McKeum scored 14 points, while Nazar Leonard tallied 13, Dallas Rufus 11, and Saxon Hokeeper 10. So while SWIC only led by 3, they really extended it in the second half for an 89-64 win. Like I said, it was a home-and-home against the Blazers of Lewis and Clark. And again, I want to thank Dave Hunter for all the stats and stuff like this. I looked on NJCAA and Lewis and Clark's pages as well as SWIC's pages, and I got no stats, no box scores, nothing to go off of. So all that you just heard was from Dave Hunter in his weekly breakdown of the games of the week. So again, thank you, Dave, so much for passing that information along to me, and I appreciate it so much. Well, the Saints drop a close one in Carterville in the Logan Classic, losing to Triton 73-68 in their last game before district play opens up. As a team, Shawnee shot 39.4% from the floor and 23.8% from 3. And again, it seems just by looking at the stats, the team didn't really come off the bench until late. Lacardis Pittman was 4 of 12 from the field, added 4 assists for the Saints and scoring 12. Like I said, Jameel Grisby was 6 of 11, one of the only high points of the night for the Saints, and had 5 of his 6 rebounds be on the offensive side of the ball. He finished with 15. Trayvon Thomas and Johnny Anderson were the other Saints in double figures, adding 12 and 11 respectively, while Triton on the other side shot 43.6% from the floor and 44.1% from behind the arc, in contrast to Shawnee. Again, it was a tighter game than what it seems like just by shooting percentage and going by the box scores. But yeah, Shawnee fell to Triton 73-68. Opening up district play against 2 tough opponents, it's going to be very interesting to see what they're able to do. Speaking of tough performances, Logan's gauntlet of game continues as they played host to Three Rivers, winning in a close one, 89-84. Alfred Worrell, that is a name that has to be on 4-year coaches' lists, as he outscored the Vols starting 5 by himself. He went 11 of 19 from the field, 5 of 9 from 3, 10 of 13 from the line, adding 3 assists. All of that came off the bench. He finished with 37, and the Vols also got a solid effort off of Isaac James off the bench as well. He had 14 points, going 6 of 10 from the field and adding 6 boards. However, not even Worrell and James could get the win against Triton. They had themselves a night in the starting 5 for the Vols. Worrell, again, massive night, shot 10 of 23, 5 of 13 from behind the arc, and had 6 rebounds for 29 points, while James added 18 of his own, 9 of 11, all coming from inside the arc, and adding 6 rebounds as well. RJ Walker said, I saw what Worrell and James could do off the bench, and he did it himself as well. He added 16 points, going 5 of 8 from the floor, 4 of 6 from deep. The Vols, again, fell at home, unfortunately, to Triton 96-87. 3-game week for the Vols, and their final game saw Logan win with Worrell having an off night, or just maybe tired legs. Elliot Londas led the way for the Vols with 20 points, going 10 of 11, again, all from inside the arc. While Walker added 16 off the bench, again, he went 6 of 14. Caden Hawkins went 6 of 10 for the Vols and hit 5 trays, adding 17, while Jalen Fairman was 7 of 11 from the floor, adding 8 assists for Logan as they roll over Southwest Tennessee 81-56. And again, it's good to see Worrell. He did not have his best night against Southwest Tennessee, but again, I think that was just more tired legs and carrying Logan the last couple of games. Isaac James had an off night as well, so it's going to be seeing if that was just tired legs for both of them, or is this more of something to be concerned about going into district play? Going into this weekend, I said Vincennes was going to have problems going to Ottumwa and Indian Hills. The rematch was worth the price of admission, as Hills led by as many as 15 in 2 separate occasions, but the number 3 team in the country battled back and tied the game with 3 minutes left and had a chance to win it in regulation in the closing seconds. Unfortunately, they had their shot blocked at the buzzer, and Hills sealed the game in overtime, beating the Trailblazers, handing them their first loss of the season, 80-75. LeBron Thomas led the way against the Warriors with 21, but he took 22 shots to get there. He finished 8 of 22. Gerald Thomas went 7 of 9 off the bench, finished with 16. Michael Osei-Bonsu finished with 12 points and 7 rebounds, but fouled out in the game, and I think that might have been the turning point, is when Osei-Bonsu, his presence was not met. As a team, Vincennes shot 40.3% from the field and 23.1% from 3. Something that, again, Coach Franklin mentioned on a couple of different post games that he wants to get fixed. He wants to be shooting around the 35% mark as a team from behind the arc. Demarion Yates went a perfect 6 of 6 from the field in the game against Sauk Valley and 9 of 12 from the free throw line for a game-high 23 points. Michael Osei-Bonsu was nearly perfect again. He went 6 of 7 with adding 7 more rebounds. Chris King, who was a starter for the Blazers against Indian Hills, came off the bench against Sauk Valley, and he played really well, finishing with 18 points, going 7 of 12 from the field. Vincennes hit a shot at the buzzer to beat Sauk Valley 81-79. They have only one game this week. It is a district game, and it is going to be on the road. So it's going to see what Vincennes really has going for them as they get ready to battle off of a loss and going into district play on the road, something that they're not really familiar with. All right, I've broken down every other game. The last team to cover is Wabash Valley College. Unfortunately, their game against St. Mary the Woods was canceled, and the Warriors will be behind the 8 ball going into district play as they have 2 games in district play. This is the second time I've had to say that a Wabash Warriors game has been postponed or canceled, and that's why I think it puts them behind the 8 ball, because they've had to scramble a little bit. They're not as fine-tuned as some of these other teams that might have had a game earlier in the year be canceled or postponed. So it's going to be very interesting to see what a first-year head coach, what a young team can do heading into district play. All right, the first slate of district games is ready to be played this week. We have games on Wednesday, games on Saturday. I'm going to go into a deeper dive than I usually do when previewing these games. The first game I'm going to talk about is going to be Kaskaskia versus Lakeland on Wednesday. It's going to be very interesting to see because these two teams like to run it out. Coach Hancock's team, again, averaging about 91 points per game. They're shooting relatively well. It's going to be very interesting to see how the Lakers are going to be able to counter that. Are they going to want to slow it down a little bit, or are they going to want to speed it up and try to run with Kaskaskia? Are they even able to run with Kaskaskia is going to be the bigger problem. So that is going to be one game that I'm really looking forward to going into it. The other game I'm really looking forward to is going to be Olney Central and Lincoln Trail, again, Wednesday night. Olney, 2 losses on the season. Trail, they are a typical Lincoln Trail team, up and down, just depending on who they play. Olney Central has had their chances to make statements, and they have made them this year in their non-district scheduling. It's going to be very interesting to see what Coach Glash can do for Olney Central. And on the flip side, can Trail put together a game that is not like riding a roller coaster? If they can, I see Trail pulling it out. If they can't, I see Olney walking away with this game. One of the more interesting games, it's not because both these teams are good, it's more because both teams have been more off than anything else, is SWIC versus Logan on Wednesday night. Logan, like I said, they've had a gauntlet going into district play. Is that going to help them, or is that going to hurt them going in? They only have a handful of wins. SWIC comes in at 6-5, but they haven't looked like the typical SWIC team that kind of grinds you out and wants you to play slow pace. They want to speed it up a little bit more this year. That kind of falls into Logan's wheelhouse. Is Alfred Worrell going to be able to recuperate long enough to put Logan on his back, as he has on a couple different occasions? Is he going to start? Is he going to come off the bench? Coach Smith-Peters has that option with him. It's going to be very interesting. Again, he didn't have a great night against Southwest Tennessee, so he might come off the bench against SWIC. It all just depends on what happens here. Shawnee has 2 games this week, and they open up their district play against Wabash Valley. And I said it when I mentioned that Wabash, they didn't have a game. Second time they haven't had a game because it was canceled on them. So it's going to be very interesting to see what a first-year head coach can do against a very tenured coach. Shawnee, I'm going to give this game to Shawnee just because, again, first-year head coach against a 21-year head coach. I mean, Coach Sparks will have his Saints ready to go off of this, and I just think it is. One thing that I forgot to say in the Vincennes recap, Coach Franklin added another historical win. Coach Franklin pulled off his 700 career win, beating Sauk Valley. I almost spaced and I didn't mention it in the recap of that game. But congratulations to Coach Franklin. 700 career wins, both in southeastern Illinois and Vincennes. Means a whole lot. I know he doesn't really take much credit into that, but it's a lot for him. He's a Hall of Fame coach in the NJCAA. I hope to get him on the podcast as well. Like I said, Vincennes is going to be off on Wednesday. They only have one district game this week. Let's go ahead and turn into the Saturday slate of district games. Kaskaskia versus Olney Central. This is going to be the marquee matchup, I believe, because I believe it's going to be power versus power, speed against speed. Both teams like to run and gun it. It's going to be very interesting to see what Coach Glash and Coach Hancock can do going into this ballgame. It's going to be a very tight affair, and I want to give the edge to Olney, but I wouldn't be surprised as Kaskaskia, who is the only team that has not lost a ball game so far, they look to keep that streak going heading into their winter break. Saturday, it's not a district game, but it is a GRAC game. Lakeland plays Rend Lake. I don't know much about the Warriors of Rend Lake, so I don't know what this is going to entail for Lakeland. But going into their break, they will be only one district game in as well. With 9 teams, this is what makes it very interesting. 2 teams will be 1 game in, while the others are going to be 2 games in. Lincoln Trail plays SWIC. Okay. On Saturday. Again, it's more of a interesting because while Lincoln Trail is that typical Lincoln Trail team, SWIC is not. If Logan beats SWIC on Wednesday, it is all going to be about how SWIC responds Saturday against Lincoln Trail. I can see it going one of 2 ways. They can fall completely apart and Lincoln Trail rolls on them, or I can see them dig their heels in, slow the ball game down to what Coach wants them to do, and pull out a victory against Lincoln Trail. It's very doable. Lincoln Trail, again, is a roller coaster type team. It's just going to be all about how SWIC responds to that game against Logan. If they win against Logan, I think that they beat Lincoln Trail handily, unfortunately. Like I said, I don't wish any bad luck on any of these teams. I like this district as a whole. I just, in my personal opinions, as I look down at these games, see what I can see, that is what I see. Olney Central, like I said, faces Kaskaskia. I already went into that game a little bit too much. Shawnee and Vincennes. If that Olney-Kaskaskia game's not up there, this game has to be number 2 because both coaches respect each other. They grind it out. They play the right way. It's going to be at Shawnee, so it's going to be very difficult for Vincennes. With that all being said, of course, I'm going to go with my Blazers, but I think it is going to be a tougher game than what some of these young bucks think it's going to be. Shawnee's just not going to roll over just because you're number 6 in the country. So it's going to be one of those type of games where Coach Franklin is going to have to make sure that their heads are right going into the ball game. And the final district game of the week is Wabash Valley against Logan. Again, it all depends on how that SWIC Logan game turns out. If Logan wins, I see them rolling over Wabash Valley just because they get a little bit of momentum. And again, with Coach Tyler Smith-Peters, momentum was everything going into this part of the season last year. Again, they railed off 31 straight wins. They haven't had that chance yet, but their gauntlet of a schedule really hasn't allowed them to have that yet. And Wabash Valley, again, they had a tough draw having Shawnee and then Logan. I think, unfortunately, Logan's going to win that game regardless of what happens against SWIC. And the Warriors are going to start off 0-2. But that's just my thoughts on the predictions for this week's slate of games. That's going to do it for this episode of the podcast. I really appreciate everybody standing in there with me as I go through a slew of games. It's going to be another slew of games next week. I am going to have a special guest with me next week, however. I'm going to keep that one to myself. As I'm going to wrap up this episode of the podcast, I appreciate everybody sticking with me, and I will see you in the next one.